For the past 5.5 years, I've been putting food out for the feral and stray cats in my neighborhood. That's right, I'm the cat lady. In the fall of 2020, I had considered making a cat shelter for them to stay in when it was cold. Well, I didn't get it done. And I felt so bad in February of 2021 when it was so unusually and extremely cold in Texas. So I decided that I would do that this year, and sure enough, I've got it done. And I'm going to show you step by step what I did. Before I started my project, I watched several videos on YouTube on how to build a backyard shed and how to make shelters for cats out of storage containers and coolers. Then I got busy and designed and graphed out my shelter. As with any project, there were mistakes and complications along the way. My very first mistake was I measured the cargo area of my SUV, and yes, it would hold a 4x4 sheet of plywood. So I went to Lowe's and I had them cut several 8x4 sheets of plywood in half. Oh boy, when I got to the car, it wouldn't go in. I should have measured the opening to the cargo area. Duh, Tish. So I had to take those sheets of plywood back into the store and ask them to cut them down smaller, which changed my whole plan that I had diagrammed out. So at that point it was just, okay, I'll just figure it out as I go, using the original plan as a guide. The videos that I watched showed the shed being placed on top of cinder blocks and of course leveled. Well, this was on my patio, so I used stepping stones. I found these self-drilling deck screws, which means no pilot holes. Yay! So I used those for most of my assembly. Then I began to think, what if a mouse decides to build a nest under there? I looked it up, and a mouse can slip through a 1/4 inch space. However, in a previous video, as you can see, a mouse was approaching the food, and it walked within about a foot of the food, and then it ran. It could smell the cat, and that is so true because I looked that up also, and yes, mice can smell cats. And they run away with fear. Even so, I was not going to take any chances. So I got busy and I lifted it up and I removed the stones. Then I thought I really need to be able to move this around. So I applied large triangular furniture slides to each corner of the bottom. The furniture slides raised the shelter up just a little bit, so I attached 1x2s around the lower edge so that it would be as close to the floor as possible. The next step was the framework for the walls. I decided to turn the shelter around so it would be centered on the window. Then I installed the outer wall. It took quite some time to build this shelter, so during the process I tried to keep it as comfortable and accommodating to my visiting kitties as possible. The next thing I did was fill 3 of the walls with 1.5 inches of styrofoam panel for insulation. Then I installed the inside plywood walls and I added foam to the floor. Then I added the flooring. Next I made the boxes for sleeping. I didn't want to take a chance on screws splitting the wood, so I used corner braces to assemble the boxes. There are 2 braces on each side, top and bottom, to connect the sides to the front and back. I also did one in the middle of each at the bottom. Then I caulked the seams. Then I laid the box on its back side, and I used a 6-inch hole saw drill bit to make the entrance in the front side of the box. I then used a sanding sponge to smooth the hole. The next step was to cut styrofoam sheets to fit each side of the box. Then I cut the styrofoam to fit the entrance hole. Then I covered the bottom and all of the sides with reflective foil insulation. I used foil tape on all of the seams. When I bought the tape, I didn't realize that the 3M was all over the tape. I thought it was just on the outer package. And to me, it made it look messy. but I guess the cats won't care. In one of the videos I watched, it was suggested to cut the foil insulation like a pie at the entrance. However, I decided to tape it back with blue tape until the cats got used to going in and out of the box. This is what the inside of the box looks like. Then I added a couple 1x3 spaced so that it would keep the top of the box from shifting. Then I glued styrofoam to the inside of the box lid, followed by a layer of foil insulation glued to the styrofoam. Then I filled it halfway with straw. Not hay, not blankets, just straw, because straw does not hold moisture. One down and one to go. My original plan was to have 3 sleeping boxes, but because I had to have the wood cut down, everything became smaller. There wasn't enough room. After finishing the second box, I drilled the hole in the side for the shelter entrance. However, I miscalculated and I had to chisel out some of the trim that was covering the seams. I had planned to stack the boxes so that the entrances would be facing the same direction. In the beginning, I placed the food inside the boxes. That's why you see the cats crawling inside to eat. I wanted to get them accustomed to the boxes. I kept the water bowls outside the boxes, and as you can see, there is not much room to put food bowls on the floor, partially because the bottom box is pulled away from the wall. So I decided to stack them differently. As you can see, Mitzi Fritzy is stretching on the little landing that I made to make it easier for them to jump up there. I also have opossums that come to visit, and I really don't mind it because they eat snails, slugs, worms, ticks, mice, rats, snakes, and lots of other things that we don't want in our yards. However, the opossums are clumsy and they kept spilling the water, so I had to make trays to hold the water. I measured the water bowls and I bought a 4-inch hole saw, and I did the trays. I attached one to the upper level wall and one to the door. Speaking of the door, it was no fun hanging that door. I tried to mortise the first hinge and it didn't work out so well, so I said nuts to that. So I attached the hinges without the mortising, and I added 1/8 inch weather stripping to take up the gap. Have you ever tried to hang a door by yourself? That was fun. I propped it up on a stack of 2x4 pieces, which helped considerably. Then I made a ramp and I placed it on the front of the door so that the cats could go up on top of the shelter. However, I didn't like the direction of the ramp, so in the final image you'll see that I changed it. Next step. All kitties need a scratching post, so I put eye screws in the wall so that I could attach it with zip ties. They didn't seem interested in the scratching post. Well, I had a few carpet squares out in the garage, so I attached one to the landing and one to the wall. Bingo! Mitzi Fritzy likes the carpet. I only put one entrance exit into the shelter because I didn't want to create a big draft. But then I realized that it was going to be necessary to do so because one night Mitzi Fritzy and Lucy were trapped up on top for about an hour waiting for the possum to quit eating. What a hog. Can you hear it munch, munch, munching? Although Lucy and Mitzi Fritzy did not feel comfortable coming down off of the landing with the possum down there, there has never been a confrontation between the cats and the possums. But I thought it would be a good idea to put an upper level exit. So the next day I drilled a 6-inch hole on the upper level and put 3 steps going down on the outside, which by the way, it took them 4 days to discover it. I used self-adhesive stair treads to do the roof of the shelter. Before I completed the interior ceiling, I bolted the little house from years before onto the top. This is the completed shelter. As you can see, I reversed the direction of the ramp. my kitty shoulder wouldn't be complete without a little kitty face and some paw prints. The finishing touch was to give the porch floor a fresh coat of paint. When it cures, I will put the patio furniture back. Ta-da! All done. So, how many hours do you think it took me to build this shelter? Make your guess in the comments below.